Good morning to all of you. It's an absolute pleasure. I'm very happy to be with all of you here today, especially since we've been great partners with the Atlantic Council. I would have hoped to be on the panel, but right after this, I'm going to be negotiating a $7 trillion deal with Sam Altman, which I'm just kidding, but I think it's going to be an interesting conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, the work of the Atlantic Council has always stemmed towards ensuring that policymakers around the world, and in the US specifically, are most informed, are able to take the right policy decisions, and are able to create a positive impact for everyone, everywhere across the world, because of the decisions that they take based on the data that they have. And the World Government Summit is dedicated to doing the exact same thing. So this marriage between the World Government Summit and the Atlantic Council to ensure that we're able to have decisions that are led on the geopolitical landscape as well as the technological landscape are going to ensure that we have a place on the table, are going to ensure as well that the US, the UAE, and the other countries that are present in the room are able to align better, and hopefully that the decisions we take are decisions that are going to impact 8 billion people in a positive manner. I wish you successful deliberations. I'll be around, so I'll be seeing all of you here today, later during the day, and I look forward to seeing the outcomes of this conversation. Thank you.
Welcome to all of you. And it's always such a pleasure to work with His Excellency Omar AlOlama, a friend, a partner of the Atlantic Council for some time. Because he's walked out of the room, I can praise him to the mountains because he really hates it when I do it in front of him, but he's one of the smartest people on the set of issues around digital AI and the future. I'm Fred Kempe, Atlantic Council, and it's my honor to welcome you to the Geotechnology and Policy Forum, part of our ongoing and very fruitful partnership with His Excellency and the World Governments Summit. So I was interested that this year it's called the World Governments Summit because the Republican members of my board get really worried when I go to something called the World Government Summit. And so this correction has made it a lot easier for me to attend. But I want to commend Mr. Omar and his staff for outstanding efforts to convene, and this is the quote from the program, but it's worth jotting down because this makes it unique among conferences of this sort. Quote, representatives of international organizations, thought leaders, and private sector leaders from around the globe to promote international cooperation and adopt rapidly growing technologies to improve the lives of societies. And it really brings governments together to figure out how to better serve their citizens. And in that way, it's a unique gathering, and we're delighted to be part of it. This year, the Atlantic Council's Geotech Center, and we partner with different centers of the Atlantic Council. We have 16 regional and functional centers at Atlantic Council. This year, the Geotech Center has taken the lead with Lloyd Whitman in charge with his remarkable deputy, Rel Brenz. And we're working to bridge the geopolitical and technology policy communities across an array of converging pillars: AI, data, space, health, climate, and capacity building, and setting a high bar for impactful, context-driven, and forward-looking policy interventions. Washington and Silicon Valley don't come together as much as they ought to. The technologists and the policymakers don't understand each other as well as they ought to, and we're trying to build bridges among them, both in Washington but across the world. This morning's forum, organized as part of the Geotech Center's Global Space Portfolio, will provide insights from global leaders on how multi-sector cooperation in space can reduce risks and advance societal goals in climate and exploration and more. One of the great things about coming to a meeting like this is who you actually meet on the plane coming over. So one of our panelists from a later panel we'll have today, I had a good conversation with him on the plane, Ron Garan, the CEO of iSpace. So how often when you're just on a plane do you get on the plane and start talking to a retired NASA astronaut, a decorated fighter pilot, test pilot, explorer, entrepreneur, humanitarian, who flew on the US space shuttle and the Russian Soyuz spacecraft. So this is the level of there he is. It's so wonderful that we had a chance to converse. But if I just look at the bios of the speakers today, they are just an impressive group of people. I write a regular column I call Inflection Points, where I discuss the many challenges facing a world in transition. And the peaceful use of outer space is unquestionably at such an inflection point, at a defining moment, as more countries than ever before are active in space amid a rapid and historic expansion of commercial space companies. In 2023, there were some 200 launches, and the number of objects launched into space is growing exponentially, dominated by the addition of thousands of commercial satellites in low Earth orbit. We're also at the beginning of a renaissance in lunar exploration as multinational partnerships emerge with broad ambitions on the moon and beyond. Japan and India recently joined the United States, China, and Russia in successfully landing on the moon, and multiple companies are likely to soon join nations on the moon. Finally, as the world works together to cut emissions and mitigate the effects of climate change, and space will play an essential role. We're honored today to have Arti Halamaini, Director of the UN Office for Outer Space Affairs, joining us, and she has said, quote, "Without space, we wouldn't know there was a climate crisis on Earth. 26 of the 55 essential climate variables can only be measured from space. A safe and sustainable space environment is therefore a prerequisite to implementing sustainable development and responding to climate change here on Earth." So it is clear why cooperation in civil and commercial space must be a foremost global priority. This morning, leaders from the UN, from the Emirates, from Egypt, from the Maldives, from the United States, and leading-edge space companies will help us chart such a path forward. So it's our honor to be here. This ongoing cooperation with WGS is something that the Atlantic Council considers a very high priority. So with that, I'd like to pass the baton to our co-host, Khalifa bin Hendi, from the Prime Minister's Office, to introduce the first panel.